to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching ASEAN in Focus. On today's headlines. The suspected gunman in the shooting of veteran broadcaster Percy Mabasa has surrendered to authorities, and he revealed that there are 6 of them involved in the murder, and they were promised a sum of 550,000 pesos. Authorities have shortened Vogue Singapore's publishing permit, issuing a stern warning to the fashion magazine for its content containing nudity and promoting non-traditional families. Marking the International Day for Eradication of Poverty, the UN Secretary General said the international community faces a harsh truth that the world is moving backwards. And the Association of Southeast Asian Nations and the European Union and its member states have signed the Comprehensive Air Transport Agreement between the member states of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations and the EU and its member states, the ASEAN EUCAT, at the 28th ASEAN Transport Ministers meeting on October 17 in Bali, Indonesia. First in our news, the suspected gunman in the shooting of veteran broadcaster Percy Mabasa has surrendered to authorities. Interior Secretary Benjamin Ben-Hur Abalos Jr. said that Joel Salve Estorial, 39, a resident of Quezon City, turned himself into the police out of fear for his personal safety after his photo was released last week, and a 6.5 million peso bounty was placed on his head. Take a look.
Joel, kung okay lang sa'yo, anyway, sumuko ka na naman, gumawa ka ng affidavit. Ano masasabi mo sa press ngayon sa nangyaring ito? Bakit mo na gawa yun?
Kasi po, lumabas na po yung mukha ko sa TV po.
Dahil lumabas, ano nangyari? Natakot ka ba o...
Natakot po ako.
Okay, sino mga kasama mo?
Si Israel po, Di Makulangan at si Edmond Di Makulangan at si Orly po. Kasi po, sir, yung ano namin po doon usapan, kung sino po ang matapat doon sa Percy po, siya po ang babaril. Nagkataon po, natapat sa akin. Sabi naman po, pag hindi ko binaril, ako po ang papatayin. Yung kumontrata po, sir, galing sa loob po ng bilibid. Itinawag po sa amin.
Okay, siguro naman yung magkano binayad. Pwede, magkano binayad sa'yo?
550 po. 1,000 po.
Estorial said the 550,000 peso was split 6 ways, with him getting 140,000 deposited into his account. The suspect is under the custody of the Philippine National Police. Percy Mabasa has a radio program entitled Lapid Fire on DWBL 1242. Lapid was ambushed by 2 men on board a motorcycle at the gate of the resort along Arias Street, Barangay Talon 2, Las Piñas City at about 8:30 p.m. last October 3. In a roundtable discussion in Makati City, U.S. Ambassador to the Philippines, Mary Kay Carlson said Washington, D.C. has noted with concern that the Philippines fell in the rankings of the Reporters Without Borders World Press Freedom Index this year. From placing 138th in 2021, the country's ranking dipped to 147th among 180 this year. In a statement posted by Percy's brother Roy, the Mabasa family late Monday night thanked Ambassador Carlson for her sympathy and support. The murder trial of one of Indonesia's most senior police officers started Monday in what is seen as a test of the accountability of the force after it was accused of initially trying to cover up the crime. Ferdy Sambo, a two-star general and head of internal affairs for Indonesia's national police, was named as a suspect after his bodyguard was found dead at Sambo's home in July. He stands accused of ordering a subordinate to shoot Brigadier Nofrancia Yosua Hutabarat, or Brigadier J, then shooting the wounded victim again himself to finish him off. Police were initially accused of covering up the murder before Sambo's August arrest and September discharge from the force. Intense public scrutiny is now focusing on the outcome of a trial that experts say is one of the biggest scandals to ever hit the police. When Brigadier J was found dead at Sambo's home on July 8, police initially said another member of the security detail had killed him after catching him sexually assaulting Sambo's wife. But on August 9, Sambo was arrested on suspicion of premeditated murder, with his wife arrested on the same charge 2 weeks later. They could face the death penalty if found guilty. Now, that followed weeks of speculation about what had taken place inside the top officer's home, where Brigadier J had been shot multiple times and whose body showed signs of torture. Sambo claimed to have been taking a COVID test at the time of the murder. Police did not reveal the killing for 3 days and said CCTV footage was not available because it was not functioning when Brigadier J died. Authorities have shortened Vogue Singapore's publishing permit, issuing a stern warning to the fashion magazine for its content containing nudity and promoting non-traditional families. Singapore has strict policies restricting LGBTQ content within the city-state's publications, with lifestyle magazines being banned from promoting or glamoring alternative lifestyles. Nudity, including depictions of semi-nude models, is also prohibited. The Ministry of Communications and Information said that it has issued the local edition of Vogue a stern warning and shortened its publishing permit. It had breached the content guidelines for local lifestyle magazines on 4 occasions within the past 2 years for nudity and content that promoted non-traditional families, it said in a statement, without specifying which content broke the rules. It also added that Vogue Singapore's 1-year permit was revoked on Thursday. Vogue Singapore has reapplied, and MCI has since issued them a 6-month permit. A permit is required to publish and distribute magazines in Singapore. On Vogue Singapore's website, it states an aim to produce thought-provoking content to drive change for good. The magazine didn't immediately respond to our request for comment. In other news, an Australian economist jailed in Myanmar has been moved from the isolated military-built capital to a sprawling prison in Yangon, a source with the knowledge of the case said on Monday. Sean Turnell was working as an advisor to Myanmar civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi when he was detained shortly after the coup in February last year. In September, he and Suu Kyi were convicted by a closed junta court of breaching the Official Secrets Act and jailed for 3 years each. Turnell's 3-year term is eligible for a time-served deduction, according to legal sources, meaning the Macquarie University professor is more than halfway through his sentence. Turnell, the first foreign national known to have been arrested following the February 1 coup, was in the middle of a phone interview with the BBC when he was detained. President Bongbong Marcos Jr. has declared October 31 as a special non-working holiday in the country. Malacanang announced this today. The Office of the Press Secretary, Officer in Charge, Sheila Garfield said the proclamation was issued to allow Filipinos to spend more time with their families as well as to promote local tourism. November 1, which falls on a Tuesday this year, is a special non-working day according to Proclamation 1236 inked by former President Duterte in October 2021. However, November 2 is declared a special working day to help the country recover from the adverse economic impact of the COVID pandemic. now under Proclamation 32 signed by President Marcos in August this year, November 1 and 2 of 2023 are special non-working days. Marking the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty, the UN Secretary General said the international community faces a harsh truth. The world is moving backwards. Take a look.
As we mark the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty, we face a harsh truth. The world is moving backwards. COVID-19 plunged millions into poverty, setting back more than 40 years of hard-won progress. Inequalities are widening. National and household economies are battered by job losses, skyrocketing food and energy prices, and the gathering shadows of a global recession. International Day for Eradication of Poverty is a wake-up call to the world. This year's theme, Dignity for All in Practice, must be a rallying cry for urgent global action. Action to invest in people-centered solutions, from health and decent work to gender equality, social protection, and transformed food and education systems. Action to transform a morally bankrupt global financial system and ensure access to financing and debt relief for all countries.
The war in Ukraine is only one of the many armed conflicts globally, none of which should have been ignited in the first place. But compounded with the pandemic, this war has had a devastating impact on the poorest of the world. It has been hindering food production, disrupting food, fertilizer and energy supply chains, and triggering inflation.
Mr. Gutierrez urged action to support developing countries as they transition from planet-killing fossil fuels to renewable energy and job-creating green economies, and action to end conflicts, heal geopolitical divisions, and pursue peace. He also called for action to achieve sustainable development goals. The International Monetary Fund and Financial Committee, or IMFC Chair Nadia Calvino, and the International Monetary Fund Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva summarized the outcome of the 46th IMFC at the 2022 IMF World Bank annual meetings. The IMF Managing Director, Ms. Georgieva, said that the messaging from the IMF is clear.
There was also a recognition that there is more that we need to do, especially in the area of debt. And urging the IMF to very forcefully step forward with possible solutions to bring more impactfulness in the common framework, and also to proactively work for the creditors and debtors to seek early resolution to debt problems, that we need clear guidelines, we need more predictability, and we need fair treatment of all creditors, public and private. I want to finish by saying what I said in the end. We were running out of time. Nadia turned to me and said, "How would you sum up this meeting?" And my summing up was, buckle up and keep going. And this is what we intend to do. On a human level, on a practical level, on an objective level, stop the war. Stop the war. I'm looking at this audience. Wouldn't you be thinking that this is a most straightforward way to get the world economy in better shape? Stop the war.
The current environment is obviously one of slowing down growth, high cost of living or increasing cost of living in many parts of the world, deep changes that have to do with digitalization, climate change, also with the geopolitical shift which is going on, rising inequality in many of our countries also. And this is an environment which is quite open to the messages of people that have very simple and totally ineffective and wrong solutions to complex matters.
President Marcos Jr. underscored the need for tourism industry players and stakeholders to come up with fresh and new ideas to entice more tourists to travel to the country and to revive what he described as one of the key players in the nation's progress. The president made this remark as he lauded the Department of Tourism's ongoing efforts to consult with regional tourism offices about ways to support the tourism industry's recovery, dubbed as listening tours. Take a look.
Following the pandemic, we need fresh and new ideas to bring back the imagination and confidence of our people from here and abroad. So they will be encouraged to explore the best destinations that the country can offer. Allow me to repeat that under this administration, the government will remain committed to ensuring that the inputs you have acquired from your listening tours will be optimized for the benefit of the sector. We always come back to our greatest asset. And the greatest asset that we have in the Philippines are the 107 million Filipinos who are a young, well-trained workforce, who are as kind a people, as hospitable a people, as gracious a people as you will find anywhere in the world. And those advantages is what we are going to present and to, again, as I said, reintroduce to the rest of the world.
The $100 million in foreign military financing the U.S. is set to provide Manila would help offset the country's scrapped Russian helicopter purchase, according to the U.S. Embassy in Manila. U.S. Ambassador to the Philippines, Mary Kay Carlson, said Washington, D.C. was very grateful to the Philippines government for making the decision to cancel its chopper deal with Moscow. Again, let's listen in.
We have notified Congress of our intent to make available to the Philippines $100 million in foreign military financing, which could be used by the Department of National Defense to offset that helicopter purchase. We were very grateful to the government of the Philippines for making the decision, especially in the wake of Russia's illegal attack of unprovoked war in Ukraine. We're looking at various types of joint cooperative maritime activities that we can do together. I will leave any sort of specifics of that, of course, to our two great militaries. They can provide the security that their citizens expect and demand.
Ambassador Carlson, meanwhile, clarified that the U.S. would not dictate the modernization efforts within the DND. The envoy noted that the U.S. also remains committed to working with Manila to ensure a secure Indo-Pacific region. She also said the U.S. wants to enhance joint maritime defense activities with the country to keep the waters safe. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, and the European Union and its member states have signed the comprehensive air transport agreement between the member states of ASEAN and the EU and its member states, are called the ASEAN EUCAT, at the 28th ASEAN Transport Ministers meeting on October 17, held in Bali, Indonesia. In a media bulletin, the Department of Transportation Secretary Jaime Bautista, meanwhile, said, as the countries he represented the country, and he said the ASEAN EUCAT is the world's first block-to-block air transport agreement with the goal of reinforcing connectivity and post-pandemic economic recovery of the 37 member states of ASEAN and EU. The ASEAN EUCAT agreement will provide greater opportunities for airlines of ASEAN and the EU to operate passenger and cargo services between and beyond both regions, which will help bolster the recovery of air connectivity between the two regions following the pandemic. Passengers can look forward to a greater variety of destinations, more flight frequencies, and more travel options between Southeast Asia and Europe. Under the ASEAN EUCAT, airlines of ASEAN and the EU will be able to fly any number of services between both regions. In addition, airlines of each country of one bloc will be able to fly up to 14 weekly passenger services and any number of cargo services to each country of the other bloc with fifth freedom traffic rights via any third country or beyond to any third country. During the event, Mr. Bautista also offered the Philippines support to other transport initiatives, such as the annual priorities, key deliverables for next year, the ASEAN guidelines on airport environmental management system, the guiding principles for the regulation of application-based mobility services for passenger transport in ASEAN, and the implementation framework to enhance regional container circulation. Bautista emphasized the Philippines as a key player in the transportation affairs in Southeast Asia and gave the country support in developing the region's transportation potential. Australia and Singapore signed the Green Economy Agreement, or GEA, that will further accelerate both countries' transition towards a green and sustainable future and help to create good jobs and lower carbon emissions. Let's listen in.
Today we open a new chapter in the comprehensive strategic partnership between Australia and Singapore. The Green Economy Agreement signals collective resolve to confront challenges as we transition our economies to net zero. It will support clean energy innovation, unlock business opportunities and create jobs, and help deliver our emissions targets while positioning Australia as a renewable energy superpower. Our commitment to work towards a food pact will shore up reliable and secure supply chains and provide certainty for Australian exporters. We also discussed the strategic outlook and our commitment to a free, open and resilient region.
Also worked on other areas to take our bilateral cooperation further, for example in the Singapore-Australia Green Economy Agreement, which will support the transitions of our countries to net zero emissions and at the same time boost growth and create jobs in the green sectors. It's the first such agreement of its kind between countries, and we hope that it will be a pathfinder for other countries similarly to cooperate with one another to deal with what is a global problem. Our agencies, A-STAR on Singapore side and the CSIRO on the Australian side, have signed a master research collaboration agreement to collaborate in areas like low-emission technologies, alternative proteins, and advanced manufacturing, as well as an agreement which will allow Singapore researchers to use Australia's synchrotron facilities. So we're looking at new strategic areas of cooperation, such as strengthening the security and resilience of our supply chains, including on food and energy, and our connectivity to the rest of the world. Singapore has long strongly supported Australia strengthening links with Southeast Asia, and we very much welcome Prime Minister Albanese's efforts to deepen this engagement and look forward to him participating in the ASEAN, the APEC and the G20 meetings which are taking place in Southeast Asia in a few weeks' time.
The GEA will look at practical initiatives to promote and facilitate trade and investment, including lowering the regulatory burden on businesses. It also aims to remove non-tariff barriers to trade in environmental goods and services and to accelerate the uptake of low-emissions green technology. Singapore and Australia already have an open, liberalized trade and investment relationship, and both are strong advocates of an open, rules-based global trading system. As my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And that's it for tonight's broadcast of ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.